Committee of the whole meeting of the Mifflin County School District will now come to order. Roll call.
Mr. Knapp,
Here.
Mrs. Laughlin,
Here.
Mrs. Maidens, Mr. Nickel,
Here.
Mrs. Sharp,
Here.
Ms. Sigler,
Here.
Mr. Stiers,
Here.
Mrs. Terry,
Here.
Mr. Wise.
Here.
Okay, Amy, do you have anything to report at this time?
No, nothing at this time.
School board members, anything to report?
Yeah, I would just like it to be known that I didn't have opportunity to vote due to technical difficulty, that my vote would have been a no.
Okay, Amy, you have that entered in the record?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members to report anything at this time? Mr. Eastep.
Okay. On the consent agenda, I'm sorry. I need to say one thing, that at the conclusion of this committee of the whole meeting, I need an executive session with the board after adjournment for one parent matter and one legal issue. And that's all I have for right now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Varner.
Yes, sir. At the last meeting last month, you asked if our athletic director, Ms. McClay, could attend. Ms. McClay is on the Zoom tonight. I think you wanted to have the opportunity if any board members had questions for Ms. McClay. And then she also has something on the board for an update board approval for tonight as well. So Ms. McClay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just here tonight to answer your questions. I have, since we shut down March 13th, we've been on weekly Zoom meetings with athletic trainers across the state. Also, Pennsylvania athletic directors across the state as well. Trying to come up with a, return to sport plan based on the PIAA and the governor. And we have done that. So we put our plan into effect. And then the governor came out with new mandates, so we did revise that, and we also added a sanitation log. What we revised was the mask. So if athletes are not actively engaged in athletic activity, when they come off the sidelines, they are required to wear a mask, as our coaches are, if they're not maintaining that 6 feet of social distance. And so that's what we put into the plan and the sanitation log as well. Steph Moon, who's a great part of our tech department and has helped us tremendously, and Barrett Neff, our girls soccer coach, collectively have developed a COVID screening process that can be done via players' phones. They can scan in a QR code, answer those questions. It's timestamped. It's also color coded. So if they answer yes to any of the COVID symptoms, it automatically shows up red to our coaches that have access to that. And I also have oversight of that. Currently, we are working on making sure all of our coaches are implementing that. It is a process. We have also worked with Crystal James, who's been our main communication person with Browns. We put 3 sanitation systems in at the Mifflin County Middle School, Mifflin County Junior High, Mifflin County High School, with sanitation products that our coaches can refill to make sure that they are sanitizing their products as they go through. Yesterday, the PIAA did come out with an announcement that said, as far as the PIAA is concerned, at this point in time, which has become my new favorite phrase, at this point in time, August 10th is heat acclimation for varsity football. August 17th is the due date for all the other fall sports. Unless something changes until then. Also, I sat in on another Zoom meeting with athletic trainers this morning. The PIAA is going to meet July 29th. There will be committees that come up with sport-specific plans for each sport and specific guidelines for each sport specifically. The PIAA has also said repeatedly that if certain areas of the state are able to participate and other areas are not, then they're okay with that. They're not, it's not going to be a whole all or nothing thing with the PIAA. They just want our athletes to get back to competing and being active if possible.
Thank you, Ms. McClay. Does not to put any board members on the spot, but does any board member have a specific question that Tish would be able to answer right now?
Well, yeah, I have one, Vance.
All right, go ahead.
With regard to the face masks on the sidelines, now that's a mandate from the state. Is that correct, Tish?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just curious as to how, I think that would be very cumbersome. I appreciate that we need to do what we need to do, but it would be very critical that when a kid comes off to the sideline, that he gets his mask back and not somebody else's. I just, do we have an idea as to how we're going to manage that?
Can we just put them clear shields on their helmets?
No. I mean, I would say, you know, I know when I coached field hockey, we had like a water buddy. And so basically your water buddy was responsible, and basically it was like a varsity JV pairing. So your water buddy was responsible for getting you water in your own cup. And so we can manage it that way, or they just simply go to their own bag. You know, they go in, they put the mask in their bag, they come out, they go directly to their own bag, get their mask, put it on. And I know, I understand it does sound ludicrous. I get that. You know, you have basketball players, soccer players, field hockey players, football players, you know, they're on the field, they're engaged, they're face to face. And then they come off and they got to put that mask on if they're not 6 feet socially distanced. But, you know, there's no sharing of any water bottles, anything like that. So wherever they drop their mask when they go, they pick it up when they come back off, put that mask back on.
Tish, I got a question. Fred Nickel. I know
Yes.
you've been talking about sidelines and stuff, but my concern is, are we going to let wrestling go? Because if there's nobody out there with body contact with sweat and blood and slobber and everything else, and then headgear and stuff, how in the world is a face mask ever going to protect these kids?
Well, I mean, wrestling cannot wear a face mask. I mean, just knowing the sport of wrestling, I don't foresee any way that could possibly happen. And so right now we are under the guidelines of the PIAA, which is our state governing board. And I can tell you 100% the PIAA is under the governance of the governor and the Pennsylvania Department of Health.
I understand, but when you talk about a contact sport, there's not much better contact sport than what wrestling is.
I mean, you can say that for field hockey, you can say it for
Yes.
basketball, you can say it for wrestling, you can say it for football. I mean, we've been through a lot of the scenarios. We truly have. But at this point, you know, just like the school board is bound by the Pennsylvania Constitution, we are bound by the PIAA as member schools, and we will comply with what their guidelines are.
Well, I'm by no means critical of that. I just think that we are going to have a system in place so that there's little room for error.
And we have really tried to do our best with that thus far. You know, the Google documents, we've gotten thermometers for all of our coaches, you know, that are having open gyms to take the temperatures. The COVID screening, kids can do right from their smartphones. If they don't have access to a smartphone, there's a paper copy. We've trained our coaches on, you know, what the procedures are. I mean, we've provided sanitation efforts to them. I really think that at this point in time, based on all of my conversations with other athletic trainers throughout the states and other athletic directors, which I communicate with weekly, that we are really doing everything in our power to make sure that we are complying and protecting our student athletes.
Tish, will you have an opportunity to be on any of those subcommittees?
What, I'm sorry, what subcommittees are you referring to?
Well, Mr. Neff, are you talking about the district-wide health and safety committee?
No, she said about the PIAA having committees and stuff.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no,
Dan.
no, I'm sorry. The subcommittees that are formed, they're by PIAA board members, and they are sport-specific committees that are already formed.
Okay,
And they're elected by district. They're not.
okay.
And there's only 2 athletic directors in District 6 that are part of that. And I have inquired to how can I tap into that, but it's a long road.
Good for you, Tish. Hey, guys, I told Tish it'd be a quick night for her tonight as we go on to 8:30. Does anybody else have a question since we have her on tonight?
I do have a question, Tish. How, for the football, we'll just say football, for example, how are you doing the busing? How costly is that going to be as far as busing? I mean, I'm not sure how all that.
That's a very good question, and that's a question that I also asked when we were in our health and safety committee, with the pandemic coordinators. And we will handle busing with athletics the same way that we'll handle busing with the return to school protocol. And that's not my decision. That's directed by, the Department of Health and the school district's decisions that they make. And Mr. Varner, maybe you could speak more to that.
Mrs. Terry, that is a good question. One of the regulations that just came out today that Mr. Estep was referencing, they're actually getting so specific that they're requiring us to, when we have the kids board the bus, the first children that are on actually get on and sit at the furthest back end of the bus. So then when the newer people are getting on closer to the school, they're getting on closer to the bus driver. We are going to have some kids, we want the families to stay together in the seating because that's what their cohort group. And then the other thing is they are going to be wearing their mask on the bus. And that's kind of the same thing we're going to be doing with athletics. We just have to fine tune everything. Like Mr. Estep said, this just came out again today at 3 o'clock this afternoon, but that's something that we will report out next Thursday. And as you heard, Ms. McClay is a part of the committee, the Health and Safety Committee.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tish.
All right, Mr. Terry, that's all I had.
All right. Dr. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Stiers. Just a few quick things. First of all, obviously, my first 2 meetings here back to back as in the new position. I just wanted to extend my appreciation to the school board for giving me this position. And I'm going to work as hard as I can to ensure that we've got some solid educational and social emotional systems in so that we can meet the needs of all of our students. Just a quick update on a few items. First of all, we have a lot of trainings that are happening this summer in order to get us geared up for the start of the academic year in whatever form that may be. We have trainings going on with Smartboards, Skyward, ELA instruction, PLN, elementary math, formative assessment, some CDT items, writing units of instruction, Collins writing, literacy assessments. And then we have also doubled down on some efforts from last academic year where we were working on online learning platforms with Google Classroom and Class Dojo. We're offering those trainings to our teaching staff in both online and in-person forms. In the morning, in the afternoon, we have some weekend training sessions. And our teaching staff has responded greatly. We already have a number of folks signed up for trainings. We just rolled them out last week. And we've got a training rolling in on Monday that's it's nearly full at this point. So our teaching staff is ready to rock, and they are doing a fantastic job sinking their teeth into the challenge that is teaching in rather uncertain times. To that end, I want to share some other kudos to our tech department. 441 teacher laptops arrived at the start of June. And in order for us to get our trainings turned around and ready to rock and roll, this board approved additional workers. And we were able to get those out by the beginning of July. So to Doug and his team, and I know a lot of those guys are on here tonight. I know Mr. Varner, Mr. Estep, and myself have conversations. We're always in so much appreciation for the fact that we got all of that turned around in such record time. Two exciting one more exciting news of note. All of our secondary schools, that'd be Mifflin County Middle School, Mifflin County Junior High, and Mifflin County High School, have been accepted into the MTSS cohort through Patan. We're one of only a few districts that met the threshold. The focus is going to be on implementing a multi-tier system of support. Most times folks think of that as getting services to the most in-need students, but in reality, it's a systemic approach to student learning for all children so that everybody's experiencing their defined success. So I look forward to working with Mr. Reeder, Ms. Stewart, and certainly Mr. Crossan and a team of educators to examine literally every aspect of our educational system and do what we can to improve. And finally, we do a lot of we have a lot of conversations. So Dr. O'Donnell always likes to end on a positive note, and so I have the great pleasure of telling you all that we've gotten some AP scores back. Nearly 70% of our students, in the face of a global pandemic that took the AP exam, scored a 3 or higher on their examination. So even though instruction stopped in face on March 13th, our teachers kept doing their part. Our students held up their end of the bargain. They worked very hard, and nearly 70% of our students passed the AP examination. That includes all of our students passing the AP calculus examination that took it, and all of our students that took the AP computer science examination passing it as well. So I know we're all extremely proud of that, and I just wanted to pass along that fantastic news with all of you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Donnell. Mr. Estep, I'm guessing there's nothing further on buildings and grounds.
Sorry, no.
Okay, and Mr. Knapp, same with you on the academy?
Yes, nothing.
All right, thank you. Public comment. All right, if there's no public comment at this time, we will move into the consent agenda.
Okay. On the consent agenda for next week, there will be recommendations to take care of approving minutes from various meetings and so on. Under board action, there are some board policies that need approval and had needed revision.
Mr. Estep, if I
go
could
ahead,
just tell
Vin.
everybody, that's
Yep.
because the compulsory attendance age has changed. And so what we did is just pulled up the 4 policies that relate to attendance, enrollment, et cetera, and we updated them to as per Pennsylvania code.
Okay. Doug, would you be able, by any chance, is it possible to make the size of the agenda a little bit larger?
Yep.
For your blind superintendent? Thank you. Okay. We have some curriculum issues that need to be approved next week. Melinda, is there anything you want to point out specifically under finance?
No, it's the regular list. I didn't have the cafeteria report, hasn't been sent to you yet. That'll be sent out by next meeting. And also the next meeting would be the typical meeting where we would present the food service budget for the following year.
Okay. Just so everybody knows, not that there really is any time of year for Melinda that's not busy, but she's about to be entering, I'll call it her worst busy time, because she's not only closing out the previous fiscal year. But she's also entering into the audit process.
Can Doug scroll that back down there? Right there, right there. That thing with Young Oaks and Brown, that's just the yearly thing we
Audit.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they look
Yeah.
at the tax collector's books.
Okay, that's
So
what
we
I
always
thought.
have them
Okay,
review the
thank you.
tax collector's books for us each year.
And I'm not sure, that doesn't look like the price changed, or did it?
Last year it was 16,500, so it changed just slightly.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, we go right from budget season to audit season in the business office.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Cafeteria, let's see. Student part under personnel. We have some resignations, either for new employment or retirement purposes. Number 4 is tenure. We have to grant tenure because teachers have met their qualifications for tenure. Some transfers, which we do. Are these the para transfers?
Yes.
Yeah, which we do almost every summer.
Yep. There'll
Um,
be a few more to come.
okay. Appointments for event staff. There's an assistant golf coach appointment on here. Need to approve winter coaches. We have mentor teachers who need to be approved. I also put on for informational purposes that a calculation error resulting from use of the prior year's base salary for Mrs. Marsh occurred when we approved her last month. And so I wanted to make sure for transparency that you guys knew that we accounted for that. Somebody in payroll caught the error, and I just wanted to make sure you saw it. Under other business, we've got, as part of Joe's long-term planning for the restoring the vehicular fleet, there's a couple of vehicles in there, and we always take those from cap reserve. That's been part of his long-term plan. We've got the lease agreement that was discussed in public comment and during board comment with Reedsville. We have a resolution that we have been encouraged to adopt given the uncertainty of what's going to be going on this year, and it has to do with the rules we fall under for 180 days of instruction and 900 hours of elementary and 990 hours of secondary instruction. And this ties in with whatever our return to school plan will be, and gives us a little more flexibility if we are forced to use alternative forms of education as part of the plan, such as online or remote learning.
I have a question about that, Jim.
Okay.
Is there any way, and I know it would require work with the Teachers Association, that we can at least be thinking about how we can, if we find that we have students that are having issues at the end or towards the end of the year, that we can make sure that they're as caught up as possible before the school year.
Yeah, Beth, I actually think Melinda can confirm this if my memory's failing. I believe in one of our funding accounts, it may have been ESSER's or it may have been CARES. We budgeted some money for remediation.
Yeah, it was an ESSER's.
Tutoring.
That's right.
Yes. And it wasn't a small amount, if I remember correctly.
200,000.
Yes. So we do have a vehicle through that, Beth, to try to help some kids out.
So that
certainly we also have the ability through the general fund that if we see kids in need of extra help and we want to set up our own catch-up type program, we can theoretically use general fund monies or COVID if there are still any left. We could use COVID funds toward that. We might just have to make if it's COVID funds, we'd have to make a change to our COVID budget and get it approved.
Can we, are we making the attempt right now to let our teachers know that this is a possibility, that we may be asking for some assistance in remediation and or other ways to make sure our kids are as far along as we can get them before next year?
The teachers are very aware of the fact that we're going to see certain portions of the student body with learning loss. We see that with certain portions of the body every year just with a normal summer, but obviously that could be exacerbated by what happened in the spring for some kids. Our staff's very aware of that. One of the things that Dr. O'Donnell was insisting on with principals is that we are going to be doing right up front at the beginning of the school year some assessment to determine where kids are so that we can determine if there were learning losses, and then we can prescribe plans to address that through tiers 1, 2, and 3 instruction. I hope that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense, but I'm concerned about the ongoing uncertainty on how many days we're going to be in the classroom, what we're going to have to do online. There are going to be kids that need, if
extra
things
help.
start to settle, if things start to settle down, hopefully by, next March, April, May, into June, July, that we have the ability to help them.
We would, and what I was trying to say is it's through two sources. Potentially one source is through the grant monies we secured, but the other source is through the general fund. We allocate X number of dollars per year for teachers to do things at either the instructional rate or the non-instructional rate. It's actually built into our collective bargaining agreement. And so we would have that capacity to do that, Beth.
Supplemental
Okay,
pays.
Yeah.
Okay, and that should be something that is highlighted maybe on the plan presented next week, that, we have this as a fallback, that we're going to do our very best to keep them from not having what they need to progress to the next level.
Right. I'm sure Dr. O'Donnell is vigorously note-taking on that. And
Mr. Eastep, if I may, Mrs. Lachlan, unfortunately, you weren't able to see the presentation for tonight because the state preempted us, but I would tell you that you would have been very pleased with one slide, which you could present next week if you so choose, because you've literally said everything that's already on the slide. But, those are going to be the salient points. As Mr. Eastep mentioned, we need to find out where our kids are, what they need, and then develop a plan moving forward. And we're going to be doing that K to 12. And if that involves before school, during school, after school, we're going to do what we need to do to make sure that we make up for that lost learning. And so all of the things that you have mentioned so far are in our presentation, and it's actually a cornerstone of what we're planning to do for our kids.
That's something that parents, I think, will be relieved to hear. I mean, it's something that they can count on, that we're working on.
Agreed.
Yes.
I got a couple questions about that other business. For those vehicles, is there a bid that goes out for those, or we just decide we're going to go down there and buy them off of them? Like, is there a low bid that we accept, or is it just?
I don't think it's bid in the traditional sense because of the CoStar pricing. They have to put that out, and if they are a participant in CoStars, then they're guaranteeing that price, so to speak.
They're guaranteeing it's the lowest price, or they're just guaranteeing the price?
Well, it costs,
If you
if it's
go
a cost,
through
I mean-
CoStars, you don't have to abide by the lowest bid if you're in CoStars.
that's
Okay.
correct. You don't have to bid it out.
Okay, learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Also,
Okay, Fred.
also that statement that Aaron Bub made about they own the field, but we own the property. How's that possible?
I would need clarification from Oris on that. I listened,
You and I both.
but I was struggling to get my head around that.
You and I both.
Yeah, I don't know what you meant on that either. I'm like, what's that mean?
But I think Oris can provide us clarity on that.
I mean,
That,
if they-
it's actually inaccurate, Mr. Nickel. The
Excuse
school
me?
district owns the property. It's 7 3/4 acres roughly.
okay, thank you.
And the association made changes to it, and they built, facilities there. But under the terms of the lease, if that lease ever ends, all those facilities revert back to the school district. But
Okay,
the school
thank you very
district,
much.
the school district, and the resolution that is on the agenda for next week ratifies again that the school district does not need that property, and that the lease will continue as is. So it is district property, but it's a long-term lease.
Yeah.
Is a district athletes allowed to use the property?
Well, according to the resolution, the district does not need the property, and that's one of their prerequisites to leasing it to somebody else, is to say that the district does not need that property for use.
So our athletes probably don't use it, Fred.
So what about 9 years from now? It's a
Well,
10-year.
it would be
How do you
tied
know
up.
Our athletes are going to need it, or our school's not going to expand to the point, or our sports aren't going to expand to where we might need it.
Well, you
How long's the lease for?
10 years as written,
10-year lease.
Yep.
Okay.
and that's what it had been
Curious.
before.
Just curious.
No, those are good questions, because I mean, it's a long-term lease, and it's, locked in for 10 years. So if the school usage does change at some point, then that lease would terminate, and that land would have to revert back to usage by the school.
Very good order.
Does it have to be a 10-year lease? Could you make it like a 3-year lease?
I believe a 10 years what was negotiated for. I'm sure that's something that if the board would like, you could approach the Reedsville Athletic Association and see if you could enter into a shorter term lease. I think that was their suggestion before, was the 10 years, and the board at that time went along with the 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Noah, apparently that lease was approved. The last lease was approved literally at my second board meeting in Mifflin County. And I think maybe that had already been in the works, because I don't even remember that lease. I think maybe the board and the business office had already probably figured that out before I came on board.
I believe that's correct. I think there were negotiations that had been ongoing.
Yeah.
Now, you said about insurance. Would they be responsible for their own insurance on that field? Because I know Central Keystone, everyone has a blanket insurance under the organization, so they have their own insurance. Is what I'm saying.
Right. I would have to take a look at the lease that was negotiated to see where that's at in there. Let's see.
Okay. Just check it out.
Yeah, I have it up on my screen here, but let's see. The lessee, which would be the association, it's under 9B, is responsible for all insurance coverages. So yes, they would have to provide insurance, Noah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Mhm.
There's a recommendation on other business to approve videotaping and recording future board meetings when we return to in-person sessions. And I believe, given everything that was discussed tonight and what we know we have to present next week, that I am probably going to be, well, not probably, I'm going to recommend that next week's meeting, since we are presenting, that we try to set that up in the auditorium And that way, if people want to come in and ask further questions, we can physically distance them since we have seating for 1,400.
Hallelujah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Mystery stuff.
Jim,
Can we?
Yes.
This is Michelle Terry. Could we? I'm requesting that we have the wording changed on that.
Okay. I can't see part of it because like I can see the,
Well, it says recommend approval of videotaping and recording future board meetings. Hold on, don't move it. Once the district is able to return to in-person sessions. Can I ask, Doug, are you able to record the Zoom as it would be like we're seeing it right now tonight?
I can record it. Obviously, I believe Zoom makes the announcement for you that it's being recorded, but I don't think you can start recording until Mr. Stiers would announce that we're going to start recording and then start the meeting.
but in essence,
But we could record it.
So we could record this as it is right now as a Zoom meeting and then upload it for the community to be able to watch. Is that a possibility?
I think that would be correct, Doug.
It would be a possibility. I'm guessing you're asking, can we upload it to
the website
to show on MC online the government?
The MCTV?
Yes.
Is the MCTV, would they be able to upload that for us?
Yes.
But the problem for tonight is I doubt it was being recorded.
It was not being recorded. I was not asked to record it, and we would have had to announce it.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but can we do that next week? And could we do that for any future Zoom meetings?
We could.
In light of what's going on, I just think, I mean, it was a little chaotic at the beginning to get everybody on. I just think in light of the situation, you know, the community needs to be able to watch this, and they might not be able to make it to the meeting, and they might not have the connections to be able to Zoom at the time we're having the meeting. So, you know, that's who we represent. I think they should be able to see what's going on and hear it. And that way, if they have any questions, they could email you to get those questions answered and give the opportunity to everybody in our area.
Right.
So is that something we can have done for next week? I mean, are we able to do that? Are we able to implement this?
Well, we have a vote for Roger and his crew to videotape. Like we're voting for them to videotape our meetings. In theory, it would be after next week, so it would start because the motion on next week.
Couldn't anyone just come in and video say we have it in the auditorium? Someone comes in the auditorium, couldn't they record it?
Did Mr. Hurto just record it?
I think Orr's answered that question last week.
You're correct, Mr. Nichol, that anybody can come in and record it.
So Mr. Hurto could come in and do it without us voting on it.
Yes.
Actually, yeah, I don't know.
And could Doug record the
Public
Zoom
meeting
without us voting on it? I just think these next two.
Doug can record. If we tell Doug that's what we want him to do with Zooms, he'll start doing it anytime we have Zooms going forward. That's no problem. We can do that.
The only thing I see that you brought up about anybody recording it, yes, that's a possibility, and yes, they could, but getting it onto the Mifflin County television is something different. Is that right, Orr? I mean,
that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
So so we have to vote on that, Orr? We have to vote to have it on MCTV. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because each, like I know the county commissioners in the borough of Lewistown approved it. And years ago when the board was initially asked about it, the board decided not to do that. But, you know, it's within your prerogative to change that. You know, it's a different board. And if you want to allow Mr. Hurto and the students in to do that, you're certainly within your rights to approve that.
Oh, I couldn't imagine anybody not wanting to have that done so that everybody can be informed with all of this. I guess we are a different board now, but I just can't imagine that it wouldn't pass.
Michelle, are you asking so that if it's approved next week, that we can approve it before maybe we do the presentation so that the presentations available for everybody? Is that what you're concerned about?
Yes, it is.
You can move
And
that
part
up
of
in
it,
front of the agenda if you decide you want to. Like it can be the first item after the consent agenda or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what if that's what she's worried about, we could do that before the presentation, couldn't we? And then the presentation would be recorded and
We would just
posted.
have to have Roger and his crew already there on standby, and then after the vote, they'd click the on button on, I guess.
This is Roger Herto. Am I allowed to speak right now?
You normally no, but given the circumstance, I think it's advisable.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, in answer to your questions that everybody was bringing up there, yes, we can take a recorded copy of a Zoom meeting. Other school districts are actually doing it right now and put that on. We also have the capability, especially if you move this meeting next week, for example, to the high school, we could be live on MCTV for that meeting. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities there with MCTV. We also have the capability, and Doug can address this possibly a little bit more. There is one little piece of fiber that still needs done, but your regular meetings down at the admin building, they could also be live on MCTV very easily. But just so you know, even during this pandemic, like this morning, for example, we videoed the Mifflin County Commissioner meeting this morning at 9 o'clock, put it online by 10 o'clock. It'll be running on MCTV cable, to all the thousands of subscribers there. And I looked before this meeting started, we already had over 100 people watch the commissioner meeting this morning. So I really think we're a resource that could be of good use. I know a lot of the commissioners and Lewistown Borough Council, their members often thank us because we actually had one member who was in Ireland during a meeting and couldn't be there and ended up watching it while he was away. So he could be up to date on what's going on. Also, it's a great archive. Every Lewistown Borough Council meeting and every Mifflin County Commissioner meeting for the past 4.5 years, I think it is, since we started doing this, is archived. And if you have any other questions that you're concerned about, basically there is no editing of these meetings because of the sunshine law. We turn the cameras on when the meeting starts. We turn them off when it ends. The only thing we do to the tape is we timestamp it. So for example, if you would go to our website and look at the Mifflin County Commissioner meeting from this morning, you'd see the date and time appear on the screen about every 5 minutes. So it's something that is done entirely by the students. I oversee it. And like I said, we would be more than willing to do it. Mr. Estep actually had us do this back when he first came here. If you remember that, Jim, we did a couple of the meetings when we had the consolidation efforts.
Yeah, I do recall that.
And
That's
we
correct.
put it online. What's different now is that we have a full-fledged cable TV station 24/7 and MCTV online. If you go to that website, mctvonline.org, you'll see what we do on a regular basis. We have about 13,000 hits on there at the moment. So it's become a very good source. I think it's a way to be very transparent. Your technology department has just done amazing things for us to make this happen. And I can't think of a better school to work situation either than the benefit that our kids get from this experience. So,
well, based on board feedback I've gotten from individuals since Michelle brought this up last week, this is going to pass. I have no doubt. So,
and I will tell you right
is there any
now,
cost associated?
I can make sure that we are there video wise. If it's definitely going to be at the high school, we can be there video wise and it can be live on cable. So
well,
we can
I think you
whatever
should be
want.
prepared next week at the auditorium.
Okay.
I think we should move the item up and vote on that before, actually before the consent agenda, if that's allowable, if that's
Can we
possible.
do that, Oris? I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, you can do that. There's nothing that prohibits you from doing that.
All right, then that's what we'll do.
Okay, I have another question though about, I'm not sure that meeting in the auditorium will not force you to have to limit the number of people coming.
Well,
Because
it will from the
isn't
standpoint of 6 feet and 1,400 seats.
But is the new order 25, no more than 25 in a building?
Oh, yes.
I believe it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, Oris.
I believe that is
25%.
That's
No, that
it's
was a different thing.
25% with it's 25% with restaurants, but general gatherings are limited to 25 people. What I guess probably the safest thing to do would be to reach out to the Department of Health and ask them, since it is a governmental function, is that an exclusion to that rule of 25 for a public meeting, and get guidance on that, because there's exceptions for weddings, and as Mr. Nepp just pointed out, for restaurants it's 25%, not 25 people. So you
All
may
right.
ask for clarity on that.
Vance and Cindy and I will reach out to the Department of Health.
We could call it a protest.
Huh?
Call it a protest.
There you go. Yeah, with major one.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. We'll make that call.
Mr. Eastep,
Yes.
I think Mrs. Terry's original request, though, was to amend the motion to take away the once the district is able to return to in-person sessions, just to be sure that that gets changed.
So basically, the new motion would just read, recommend approval of videotaping and recording future board meetings.
Correct. Is that
Okay.
right, Mrs. Terry?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
The other question that I do have one
Amy.
more question.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Amy, are you making note of that for
Yes.
Lindsay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, one
Mary
more.
Lou.
That's okay. That's all right. Oris, if someone does come into a meeting and video records, does that person have to announce that he or she is doing that?
No, as long as they don't interfere with the meeting as it's being conducted.
Okay, thank you.
So for instance, they couldn't walk around, and as people are speaking, walk up close to the table where the board is and so forth. They can't disrupt the meeting, but they can from their chairs sit and record it. That's
Okay,
permissible.
thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Another thing that we could do, but well, Oris, if we try to move that item to the front before the consent agenda, should we just do that on the spot, that somebody makes a motion to put a roll call item on the front of the agenda?
No, you can do your agenda that way as a standalone item, and then have your roll call items after, your remaining roll call items after you do your consent agenda. There's nothing that says this is the way that it absolutely has to be. You have flexibility with that, as long
Okay.
as the board is in agreement of doing it that way.
Okay.
So we would just list it in the same order that it is.
Yeah.
Well,
Move it
you
to
need to
the
put
front.
the other business part first. Is that what you're saying, Amy?
Well, I mean, if we do we actually physically have to move it on the agenda, or do we just approach that item as before we start the other things, is what I'm asking.
That's what I was asking, and Oris said we can either do it that way, where we just say at the beginning of the meeting orally, we say we'd like to consider item 5 from other business as the first item of business tonight, or he's saying we can literally remove item 5 and now number 6 becomes number 5, and we put item 5 at the very front.
Okay.
Roll call item.
Okay.
All right. Just for clarity for me on that same topic regarding the videotaping and recording of future board meetings, is that just the board meeting? Is that the committee of the whole meeting and the board meeting?
We
Is
would
the
be prepared.
JOC?
I'm sorry. Just so everybody understands, we would be prepared to do both of your meetings every month. I mean, we have the student capability that we would be prepared to be at both of your meetings every month.
Well, that's what I think meetings means.
Yes.
Right. I mean,
I agree.
that would be
Yeah,
our.
that was the intent.
And also, I mean, I don't understand the law here with some of this, but given the fact that anybody can come in and record a meeting at any time, wouldn't we be able to just start recording this from the beginning without your approval or not? Am I wrong on that, Oris?
Well, I think the way that it was set up, that previously there were agreements in place.
Oh, I see. Okay.
He's just trying to be consistent. Yeah.
Understood.
Well, what I was trying to get understanding on is, and it's already been answered, are we including the JOC in that as well?
Yeah, are we going to be broadcasting the operating committee meetings?
Well, I'm absolutely okay with that.
Yeah,
I just wanted clarity on that because it just said meetings. I didn't know if it was just the board meeting or all of them.
No, it would be everything. And just for more clarity, for those of you that aren't familiar, what this would mean was from the time we would record it, we would set a regular broadcast schedule for those people that like to watch it on cable TV, and they would know each week when the school board meetings are going to be televised. In addition to that, it would also, as soon as we get it done, be on MCTV online, which means anybody could watch it anytime, 24/7.
Okay.
Roger, I have
what
one more quick question.
Wait, I have
I
a
don't.
question. Wait a second. I have a question quick.
Okay.
What about the academy?
What about the academy?
We already
That's
talked
what we
about
just
it.
asked.
I must have missed it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Say that
Already
again.
done.
Okay, John.
Roger, you may have already addressed this and I may have just missed it. While we are recording the board meetings, will it be live streaming as well?
Well, here's the thing with that. The only benefit, no matter what you hear back from the Board of Health for this next week's meeting, is if it's at the high school, just because of technology right now and a piece of fiber that's needed, if at the high school, it would be live right away. Doug knows, he and I have been talking about this before, through our YouTube channel, which we have not yet tried. We're going to unleash it this fall. We were going to start streaming live on our YouTube channel, MCTV YouTube. We have not yet experimented with that. And I would hate to experiment with a board
Yeah,
meeting
with this. So I can't, if somebody from the public asks me if we can stream it, in the short term, we probably can't.
No,
But
but
in the longer
I would
term, we
say,
may be able to.
yeah, I would say in the very near future, Doug, maybe you can address this, but I would say
We
in the
just
very
may
near
not be able to do
future-
it with this meeting next week.
That's correct.
Okay.
Again, if it's at the high school, you can announce it would be live on cable TV.
Okay.
And within a day, it would be posted online.
I have one more question related to this. If we do run into the 25-person rule, and that puts a chink in the armor or whatever you call it, I wonder, and I'll have to probably talk about this with the worst. I wonder if we could address that and not be out of compliance if there was a way to break the audience up into, rather than being right there in the auditorium, if they were watching it in classrooms with, groups of less than so many or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if we're live, obviously we can send it all through that building. We can.
Okay.
How are we going to open up school if we could only allow 25 people?
You tell me, buddy. I don't know. That's what's the problem with all of this. We don't know.
Mr. Knapp, we actually had that question today.
It's not funny.
And the 25 rule does not apply to schools in session.
There you go. School's in session next Thursday night. You guys, I don't know why you guys aren't coming up with these answers.
Have night classes.
There you go.
Night class.
Code selective.
Okay, so where are we now then?
We're at item 6.
Item 6 is the resocialization of sports plan, I guess, or guidelines. from Tish. Is there anything left?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, is there anything that anybody wants moved?
I have a question. The whole way back at the beginning.
Of the COW?
Yeah. All the curriculum maps, what does that mean? And short, quick, very quick. What does that mean? Is there cost? What?
Mr. Neff, those are all rewrites of previously written curriculum documents that have just been either taught or had adjustments this
They're
year
not
that are
textbook
approved
purchases.
for adjustments this year to be taught and then redefined before we can publish next year.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a real quick insert for Dr. O'Donnell when he has 2 seconds to breathe. I think that the discussion in the previous meeting regarding the Logan Guard is something that we should explore as a curriculum piece. Maybe reach out to the Historical Society or somebody that is really passionate and can speak on that issue. Even just putting together a video that we can show in maybe our history or social studies classes, K through 12. It
Mrs.
wouldn't hurt
Laughlin,
to know a
actually,
little.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that actually is something that we did when we rewrote the some of our K to 6 elementary and middle school curriculum, where actually Forrest Fisher lent his expertise when we were doing that. He has a fantastic piece on the Logan Guard that's available on the Mifflin County Historical website. That is actually one of the resources for within our curriculum documents. But certainly bears truth to what Mr. Fuller represented earlier in the conversation we had. It's not falling on deaf ears, but I do want you to know that that little slice of Mifflin County history is something that very much is present within our curriculum.
Okay, that I think there needs to be, maybe not at the K through 3 level, but certainly 5 through 12 at least. There needs to be a little discussion that goes along with that. And it does not even need to touch on the Confederate flag, but there needs to be an understanding of local history and why they did what they did.
Agreed. I will make a note of that. I know we're actually due for a few more social studies rewrites here shortly. So I'm making a note now as you're mentioning it.
At least it would be a beginning, and I thank you for doing that.
Okay. Before I ask if there's anything that board members would like to have moved from the consent agenda at this time, I'm asking Mr. Knepp and our board to sort of give me some direction here going into next week's meeting. Managing these meetings on Zoom is very cumbersome. I can't see people. I don't know when they're done talking. In our public comment, that turned into question answer. I understand the nature of what we're trying to deal with, and we're trying to put people at ease. But what I want to know moving forward is, do we want to keep it that way next week, the way we did this week, or do we want to go back to what it's supposed to be, simply public comment? I asked that question just for managerial purposes.
It's public comment. That's it.
So no question and answer.
That's my opinion.
Well, that's what it's supposed to be. But by the same token, in the past, we've gotten into some of these emotional issues, and we've gotten away from that, like we did this evening. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but I would just like some direction from either, is that the way we want to go? John,
yeah, because you don't want to be accused, Kateri, of shutting people off.
Well, that's right, but I want us to all be on the same page here.
And I think we need to make sure that we're following the rules of the public comment as well. And, you know, the back and forth and people coming back and speaking more than one time isn't really.
And that's something you would have learned about in your board secretary training for conducting meetings, correct?
Yes. So, you know, that's why the question and answer thing, I think is more, the needs of that are more met in, you know, a personal email. I'd be happy to, you know, give my email address as well and go ahead and, you know, kind of, you know, feed
Run
those
down
out.
answers.
Yeah, who they need to go to. But the public comment really should be the person announcing their name and the nature of their business, and then the time limit.
Thank you, Amy. You're
Amy.
absolutely.
Okay.
Amy, can we, if we're doing and I agree, if we're doing the questions via email, and since we are going to have the ability now to have this on the, you know, on the website, et cetera, can we do an answer? That way Q&A is always something that you're looking at when there's a topic of contention, you know, and it's good to know what people are thinking. Other people are thinking. They might be asking questions that you are asking, but it's also good to know those answers that you maybe didn't ask that question. And is there any way that we can then take those emails, those answers, and post them, let them know that they will be posted as a Q&A?
I mean, I think we can do that, but I think in reference to this that we're dealing with now, I'm pretty sure that the administrative team had already discussed coming up with the frequently asked questions and providing that document to the parents. So these emails, it would, you know, we can screen them and then make sure we're feeding them to the right administrator to, you know, address it in that forum. You know, on a regular basis, we probably won't get more than a couple emails, you know, with questions.
Yeah.
But for the next little while, we should expect to get a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And to be sensitive to the fear that's out there, we need to be answering as many questions as we can and letting everybody know that we are addressing these issues and trying to answer questions and allay fears. And
absolutely, yeah.
But we can't do both in public comment. That's what I want
No.
clarity on. So
No.
next week,
public comment is public comment.
Period.
Not
Right.
question and answer. So there's still about 70 people on right now. So I hope they're following what's being said. So next week, if you want to make comment, you can make comment, but we won't be able to do the back and forth like we did tonight with answering questions right there on the spot. So that's why we're encouraging you, if you have questions, email them to me. And even if it's a question that I don't know the answer to, there may be somebody on the team who does, and I'll make sure it gets to that person, and then we'll try to answer them the best we can. This is going to be very similar to when I walked in the door 10 years ago, when all the buildings were being moved or closed or whatever. I was getting 600 emails a day with questions like this. And I just did my best to try to answer them.
Mr. Stiers, can I make a comment for the public for how you're going to run that? I know I'm not on your board. When we do our board meetings on Zoom, we have one person that's designated as the person that if somebody wants to make a comment or to be recognized, they send a chat to that person and then get put on a list. And then the president of our board asks that person, do I have any speakers that need to speak? And then they get recognized off of that list in order. That way it is a little bit more orderly. That might help during public comment for you if you want to use something like that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, is there anything that board members want to have moved from consent agenda to a roll call item at this time?
Mr. Stires, I'm not on the board, obviously, but since you have two resolutions, numbers 3 and 4 under other business, they should be moved as standalone roll call items.
All right, thanks, Urs.
You're welcome.
Amy, did you get that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
A reminder to the board that we have two executive items, one for a student matter and one for legal after we
Okay.
adjourn.
Wait a minute. Is there any public comment at this time?
Yes, I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead, Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Stires. This is Rose Schultz. First, I want to give a huge thanks to Dr. O'Donnell for touching on academics and giving some stats on AP. I think we need to have more of that at these meetings. I've said this so many times between board meetings and local advisory meetings that I want to be proud of this district. And in order to be proud of it, we have to communicate with each other more. We have to tell each other what it is that we're doing, how we're doing it. I mean, we're preparing these kids for the future, okay? So just like all of us are taking care of the generation ahead of us, right? We have this generation coming up that's going to be taking care of us. These are uncharted waters. I know these are difficult times. My industry that I've been in for 25 years may completely fail, and it's heartbreaking. But your mission statement, the first word, I didn't write it. I don't know who wrote it, but the mission statement's first word is educate. We cannot lose sight of that. And I feel that we just kind of go off sometimes in these meetings and we lose sight of the prize, right? I want this district to be a district that when we're stepping up to the plate, we're knocking it out of the ballpark. We're not hitting foul balls. I see on this agenda tonight about some curriculum stuff coming up, but I don't see anything about 8th grade reading, which Mrs. Mitchell brought up back in January. So I'm sorry if I sound angry. I'm just frustrated like everyone else. And I know you guys are working hard. And I commend you all for what you did back in March through the end of May. But please know this. This coming school year cannot, under any circumstances, start the way we went in mid-March to the end of May. Because I think we all know that those kids lost a ton of education. And whether we want to talk about it or not, that's up to you guys, but I'm going to talk about it. We owe these kids. They deserve an exceptional education, not a mediocre one. And I hope that my words are not falling on deaf ears because this is important. And I just want to see us move forward and push forward. I know that health is important. I know that the safety is important. All of it is important. But we never talk about the education aspect. We just touch on it a little bit here, a little bit there. We need to do better. And if we are going to be faced with another shutdown, which in my industry is happening right now, okay? My clients are shutting down and it's heartbreaking. And if we are faced with that, we need to make sure that we are educating, that we're not just shoving PDF files in front of these kids. And I know it's not easy. And I'm not here to bash anybody by no means. I want to help. So if you're going to have your committees, maybe you should be open to inviting some parents because you might be surprised about the perspective and the ideas and the opinions that may work really well. You're not going to make everybody happy. I think we all understand that. But we have to try our best no matter what. These kids are the future. We cannot fail them. It is our responsibility. So I hope you all are hearing me. And as far as question and answer or concern, these are different times. So of course we're going to have questions. In my industry, somebody emails me, they're hearing from me in 6 hours. I'm an overachiever. I would like to hope and believe that y'all will answer emails within 48 hours. We deserve to hear from you if we have questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment at this time? Okay, this meeting's adjourned. Just a reminder, we'll be going into executive session.
I need Vance and Kevin